The cabin smelled like pine wood and venison stew, but something felt wrong. The silence pressed too heavy against the walls. The air hung too thick, too still, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Marcus Brennan pushed the door open with one calloused hand, his heart already beginning to pound with an instinct he couldn't name. At first, he didn't see them, just boots. His friend's boots, tossed carelessly by the edge of the braided rug where Marcus's own father had once sat, cleaning his rifle after long days tracking elk through the high country. Then he heard it, a soft, muffled sound that made his blood run cold, and a voice. Her voice, whispering the name of a man who wasn't him. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you trusted with your whole heart, drop a comment below and let me know how you got through it. And stick around because this story takes a turn you won't see coming. He moved like a ghost through the narrow hallway, eyes hollow, breath caught somewhere between his lungs and his throat. The floorboards beneath his weathered boots knew his weight, had known it for 36 years, yet now they seemed to cry out with the sound of his breaking heart. And then he opened the bedroom door. There she was. Isabel, his wife, the mother of the child he'd prayed for every night, tangled in sweat and sin with Garrett Hayes, the man who'd once stood beside him during cattle drives and bar fights and blizzards that nearly killed them both. The same man who'd helped him bury his second wife's wedding dress when she left him childless and bitter. They both froze like deer caught in lantern light. Garrett's face went white as fresh snow on the Colorado peaks. Isabel pulled the patchwork quilt up to her chin, her green eyes wide with something between guilt and defiance. The room reeked of betrayal and broken promises. Marcus, she whispered, but the name died on her lips like autumn leaves in winter wind. He stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. His calloused hands trembled at his sides, the same hands that had built this cabin log by log. The same hands that had held her during morning sickness. The same hands that had traced gentle patterns on her swollen belly, believing foolishly that this child would be his salvation. "Get out," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of a judge's sentence. "Both of you. Get out of my house." Garrett scrambled for his clothes like a man fleeing a burning building. But Isabel sat up straighter, clutching that quilt like armor. "Marcus, let me explain," she said, and there was steel in her voice. "Explain?" The word exploded from his chest like a gunshot. "Explain how my best friend is in my bed with my pregnant wife? Explain how the child I've been thanking God for every single night isn't mine?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Outside, the wind howled through the pines of Blackwater Ridge, Montana, as if the very earth was mourning with him. Marcus Brennan had learned early that survival in the Montana Territory required partnership, because two hands weren't enough to fight wolves, bandits, and blizzards. So he'd married his first wife, Emma Rose, when he was 23. She was a preacher's daughter from Denver, with corn silk hair and dreams of a house full of children. But year after year, her belly remained flat. The townspeople of Silver Falls whispered behind their hands at the general store, cruel speculations about Marcus's manhood. When Emma Rose left him for a traveling salesman, Marcus married again within 6 months. Rebecca was a widow from Wyoming with kind eyes and gentle hands. But she too left him childless after 2 years, running off with a railroad engineer who promised her passage to California. Then came Isabel. He'd married her because he wanted children to carry on his last name. The Brennan name had weathered 3 generations of frontier hardship, and Marcus refused to let it die with him. But his desperate need for legacy had blinded him to who she really was. Now, as Garrett finished dressing and prepared to slink away, Isabel found her voice. "I did what I had to do," she said, lifting her chin. "This baby needs a father who can actually give him life." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What did you say?" "You heard me, Marcus Brennan. 3 wives and not 1 child to show for it. The whole town knows. They whisper about it at church, at the saloon, at every quilting circle. Poor Marcus Brennan, they say, built like an ox but shoots blanks like an old rifle." Each word was a knife twisted in his chest. Garrett paused at the door, looking back with something that might have been regret. "So you decided to shame me in my own bed with my own friend?" Marcus said. Isabel's laugh was bitter. Shame you, Marcus. I saved you. This child will carry the Brennan name. Your precious legacy will live on. Nobody has to know the truth. But I'll know, he roared. Every time I look at that child, I'll know he's not mine. Every time he calls me Papa, it'll be a lie. Better a lie than nothing at all, she shot back. Better this than dying alone and forgotten with your name carved on a headstone nobody visits. The fight went out of him then. He looked at this woman, this stranger, and realized he'd never known her at all. I want you gone by morning, he said quietly. Both of you. Take whatever you need and go. And the baby? Her hand moved to her belly. Take him too. He was never mine anyway. Marcus wandered through Silver Falls like a man in a fever dream. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and every person he passed seemed to be staring, whispering, judging. Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house gave him a pitying look. Thomas Bradley, the bank owner, nodded gravely as if attending a funeral. They all knew. He found himself at Sullivan's saloon, but the whiskey tasted like sawdust and regret. The piano player played melancholy tunes that seemed to mock Marcus's misery. He left after one drink, unable to stomach the sideways glances and barely concealed smirks. The train station sat at the edge of town like a gateway to everywhere Marcus had never been. The 4:30 from Denver had just pulled in, belching steam and cinders into the Montana sky. Passengers disembarked, but Marcus barely saw them. He was walking past the platform when he heard it. A woman's sob, raw and broken, carrying over the noise of the locomotive. She sat on a wooden bench near the telegraph office, clutching a yellow telegram in her trembling hands. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins, framing a face etched with profound grief. She was maybe 29, dressed in a traveling dress of deep blue wool that had seen better days. Her wedding ring caught the light as she pressed the telegram to her chest and wept. "Ma'am?" Marcus approached slowly, hat in hand. Do you need help?" She looked up at him with eyes the color of storm clouds swimming with tears. "My husband," she whispered. "My husband is dead." The telegram fluttered in the breeze. Marcus could see fragments of words. Mining accident, Copper Creek, Colorado, deepest regrets. "I'm so sorry for your loss, ma'am," Marcus said. "Is there someone I can fetch for you? Family?" She shook her head. "I came here for work at the new school they're building. Daniel was supposed to follow next month after he finished his contract at the mine." Her voice broke. "He didn't even know." "Didn't know what, ma'am?" Her hand moved to her stomach. "Didn't know he was going to be a father." The irony hit him like a punch to the gut. Here he sat, broken by the knowledge that he'd never father a child. And here she sat, carrying a child whose father would never know of its existence. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Olivia," she said. "Olivia Harper. My husband was Daniel Harper. I'm Marcus Brennan. And Mrs. Harper, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to come up to my cabin, just for tonight? You shouldn't be alone right now." She studied his face, perhaps seeing something there that convinced her he meant no harm. Maybe it was the fact that his own grief was written in every line of his weathered features. "That's very kind, Mr. Brennan," she said hesitantly. "But I couldn't impose." "It's no imposition," Marcus said. "I've got plenty of room, and well, I could use the company myself. Today hasn't been my best day either. If you're still with me, drop a like and subscribe, because what happens next will restore your faith in second chances. Sometimes life takes everything away just to give you something better." Olivia Harper sat at Marcus's kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. She'd noticed the disarray when they arrived, the signs of hasty packing, but she didn't ask questions. "Your wife isn't here?" she asked gently. "My wife is gone," Marcus said. "Left today, actually, won't be coming back." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two people drowning in their separate griefs. Olivia stared out the window at the darkening sky, while Marcus studied her profile in the lamplight. She was beautiful in a quiet way, with a strength that seemed to radiate from her very bones. "How far along are you?" Marcus asked. 4 months, Olivia said. "I found out 3 weeks ago. I was going to tell Daniel when he arrived here. I had it all planned out." Her voice cracked. "He would have been so thrilled." "I'm sure he would have been," Marcus said softly. "Yes," she smiled through her tears. "He wanted children so badly. We'd been trying for 3 years." The words hit Marcus hard. Here was a woman whose husband had managed in 3 years what Marcus couldn't accomplish in over a decade. "What about you?" Olivia asked. "Children, I mean." Marcus could have lied, but something about this woman made him want to tell the truth. "No," he said simply. 3 wives and not 1 child to show for it. The problem is me. It's always been me." Understanding dawned in her eyes, soft and without judgment. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry." "It's all right," Marcus said. "It's not exactly a secret around here." They fell silent again. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. "Mr. Brennan," Olivia said suddenly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." She looked at him with those storm-gray eyes. "What are you going to do now? With your wife gone, I mean." Marcus considered the question. "I honestly don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead." Olivia took a shaky breath. "I know this might sound crazy," she said, "but what if we could help each other?" "How do you mean?" She leaned forward. "I'm carrying a child whose father will never know him. You're a man who wants nothing more than to be a father. The townspeople already assume the worst about both of us. What if we got married?" The words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his heart begin to race. "Mrs. Harper, are you serious?" "Completely serious," she said. "Think about it. You'd have the child you've always wanted. I'd have a husband to protect me and help raise my baby. Both our reputations would be salvaged." "It wouldn't be a real marriage," Marcus said slowly. "Not at first anyway, more like a partnership." She nodded. "Exactly. A partnership built on mutual need and respect." Marcus stared at her, hardly daring to hope. "You'd really do that? Marry a stranger?" "You're not a stranger anymore," Olivia said softly. "You're the man who found me crying at a train station and offered me shelter. You're the man who listened to me talk about my dead husband without judgment. That's a good man." "But the child," Marcus said. "The child would be mine? In every way that matters?" "In every way that matters," Olivia confirmed. "No one would ever know the truth. He'd be your son, Marcus, completely and totally yours." "Olivia," he said finally, "I need to tell you something. My last wife, Isabel. She was pregnant when she left today. But the child wasn't mine. She'd been with another man, my best friend, and when I found them together, he swallowed hard. She told me she was doing me a favor, having a child with a man who could actually father one." Olivia's face softened with compassion, and she reached across the table to take his hand. "Oh, Marcus, I'm so sorry." "So you see," Marcus continued, "I'm damaged goods, broken. Are you sure you want to tie yourself to that?" "And I'm not just a widow," Olivia replied. "I'm a woman carrying a dead man's child with no money, no family, and nowhere to go. We're both broken, Marcus, but maybe broken people can help fix each other." Marcus looked at their joined hands. "When?" "As soon as possible," Olivia said, "before I start showing too much." 3 days, Marcus said. "We'll do it in 3 days." 3 days later, Marcus Brennan stood on the steps of the Silver Falls courthouse, his hands shaking as he helped Olivia Harper down from his wagon. She wore a simple dress of cream-colored wool and carried a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked that morning. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked for the 10th time. "Are you?" Olivia countered. He looked down at her. "More sure than I've ever been about anything." Judge Patterson performed the ceremony in his office with his secretary and the sheriff serving as witnesses. It took less than 10 minutes to make them husband and wife. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Montana," the judge intoned, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Brennan, you may kiss your bride." Marcus hesitated. They'd agreed this would be a marriage of convenience, but Olivia smiled up at him and nodded, and he leaned down to press a gentle kiss to her lips. It was their first kiss, but somehow it didn't feel like it would be their last. As they walked out of the courthouse, Olivia slipped her hand into his. "So, Mr. Brennan," she said, "what do we do now?" "Mrs. Brennan," he replied, marveling at how naturally the name fit her. "We go home." The drive back to the cabin was quiet but comfortable. Olivia sat beside him, her hand resting on the small swell of her belly, and Marcus found himself stealing glances at her profile. "Marcus," she said suddenly. "Yes? When I was sitting at that train station, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered." He waited for her to continue. "But now," she continued softly, "now I think maybe some endings are really beginnings. Maybe we have to lose everything to find what we really need." Marcus smiled. The first real smile he'd managed in forever. Maybe they are. As they crested the hill that led to his property, Olivia gasped. "It's beautiful," she said, taking in the sight of the log cabin nestled among the pines. "It's home," Marcus said simply. "Our home," Olivia said, and the word sent warmth through Marcus's chest. Home, family, legacy, all the things he'd chased and failed to find, now sitting right beside him. That night, as Olivia settled into the spare bedroom, and Marcus lay in his own bed, he stared up at the ceiling and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Not for answered prayers, but for unanswered ones. If his first 3 marriages had produced children, he never would have been free to offer Olivia the partnership she needed. Sometimes the greatest blessings came disguised as the deepest disappointments. From the next room, he heard Olivia's voice. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Olivia." And for the first time in years, Marcus Brennan fell asleep without the weight of failure crushing his chest. Instead, he dreamed of a child's laughter and a woman's smile, and the kind of love that grew from 2 broken people choosing to build something beautiful together. The months passed like water flowing downstream. Marcus and Olivia fell into a rhythm that worked better than either had expected. She taught at the new school, and he worked his land. In the evenings, they sat together by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. Slowly, carefully, something deeper began to grow between them. The baby's first cry split the Montana dawn like a bugle call. Doc Harrison emerged from the bedroom, his face creased in a satisfied smile. "Congratulations, Marcus," he said. "You have a son. A healthy, strong son." Marcus's knees nearly gave out. Through the bedroom door, he could hear Olivia's exhausted laughter and the baby's continued protests. "A son," Marcus whispered. 8 pounds, healthy as a horse, and that wife of yours is tougher than leather," Doc Harrison said. "You're a lucky man, Marcus Brennan." Marcus pushed past the doctor into the bedroom, where Olivia lay propped up against the pillows, holding a small bundle wrapped in his mother's old christening blanket. She looked up at him with tired but radiant eyes. "Meet your son," she said softly. Marcus approached on unsteady legs and looked down at the tiny red face. The baby had stopped crying and was staring up at him with dark, serious eyes. "He's perfect," Marcus breathed. "He's ours," Olivia corrected gently. And as the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around Marcus's finger, he realized she was right. This child was his in every way that mattered. Not because of blood or biology, but because of choice, because of love. "What should we name him?" Olivia asked. Marcus considered. He'd always imagined naming a son after his ancestors. But this boy deserved his own name, his own legacy. "How about Daniel?" he said. "Daniel Marcus Brennan, after his first father and his mother, who had the courage to give a broken cowboy the family he never thought he'd have." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "That's perfect." As the Montana sun rose over the Silver Falls Mountains, painting the cabin walls gold with morning light, the Brennan family, born not of blood but of choice, not of passion but of partnership, began their life together. And in the years that followed, when people asked Marcus how he'd finally found happiness, he'd always give the same answer. Sometimes the best things come to those who've learned to stop looking for them. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Daniel Marcus Brennan grew up strong and true, never knowing he'd once had another father, never questioning the love of the man who'd chosen him before he was even born. And Marcus and Olivia discovered that marriages built on mutual respect and shared purpose could bloom into love just as deep and lasting as any born of passion, maybe even deeper because it was built on choice and commitment. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story about second chances and redemption. Share this in the comments. What's the greatest second chance you've ever been given? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me to keep sharing these tales of hope and healing. Thanks for being here, and remember, your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the best chapter is still to come.